got Chloe and Sebastian. Chloe is the UX research manager at Waitrose, and Sebastian is senior designer at Waitrose. Folks, your Waitrose grocery delivery service has been my lifeline during pandemic, so thumbs up for that. Chloe, Seb, hi, how are you?
Hi.
Thanks for joining. Well, I leave you to it to share your experience of A/B testing. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Sergey. So, as you mentioned, I'm Chloe and I'm the UX research manager at Waitrose.
And I'm Seb and I'm senior UI designer at Waitrose.
So, what are we here to talk to you about today? Well, we're lucky at Waitrose to have a pretty well-established UX research function. And like most digital businesses, we understand the importance of testing usability to improve the user experience. But how many of us can truly say that we put the same amount of effort into testing our UI designs with users as we do our UX designs? As UI changes can often be pretty subtle, especially to the untrained eye, testing UI with users is often left to A/B testing, which in its simplest form is showing two versions of a design live to users and seeing which one results in the behavior that you want, which on an e-commerce site like Waitrose.com tends to be users buying more of something. But the major limitation of A/B testing in this way is it doesn't tell us anything about why the users are behaving in a certain way, and it doesn't tell us about the overall impact on the wider user experience. So today, Seb and I are going to be talking to you a little bit about some work that we've recently done on alert messages on Waitrose.com and how going a little bit further to understand why users were behaving in a certain way helped to tell us so much more than just which icons or which colors we should be using to make users more likely to read the messages on our website.
So to begin, this is a look at our kind of general component cycle. When we're undertaking work like this, we like to begin with the purpose of the component and the problem statement. As a team, we like to align on the purpose at the beginning and then outline any customer problem we're trying to solve as the problem statement. Stage 2 is the UI design. Normally begin with visual research to influence our decision making, and then we move on to applying styles or creating new styles if we need those. It really depends on the component and what we're trying to do. Before we go into engaging with Chloe on testing, we always try to create some form of a hypothesis to help Chloe understand what we're trying to work out and just make sure any assumptions are challenged or validated. Depending on what happens in testing, you might get results that you're not necessarily expecting, or something you might decide you want to retest. So you might go back into the circle and go back to iterate on the UI design to answer those questions. You might go into testing again, or you might decide that what you've done has answered those questions. Then we move on to development and release. And something we just started doing now in our Figma library is just making sure that we write up any documentation that we've got from testing, just to make sure that in a year's time, if we come to look at that component again, we've got all that information in the same place, so that if it's a different designer, we're covered and everyone's working off the same hymn sheet.
So what's the problem that we're going to be talking about today? Well, what we've seen over many years of testing a whole range of journeys and interfaces is users just don't like reading things. It takes a lot of effort, it slows them down. And so to demonstrate this, we've got a quick video now of some remote unmoderated usability testing that we recently did. And in this test, we asked users to book a delivery slot on Waitrose.com. And after the task, we asked them if they remembered seeing an alert message. And you can look out for the alert message in orange above the slot grid.
Yes, come to Waitrose to do your weekly shop. Great. You want to book a slot for delivery at some point in the next few days, book any slot you'd like, okay? Okay. Home delivery, £40 minimum, delivery 7 days a week, 6 AM till 10 PM. I'd rather have it in the morning because I'm a morning kind of person, so choose home delivery. Yeah, and so 1st of March. Yeah, so I'd kind of want it. I like it at the start of the week, so I'll probably have to do 1 till 2. I want a bit earlier, so I'm going to do Friday, 10 till 11. Nice. It's an alert message box on the Brookhouse page before. No, I didn't. I didn't actually. If you saw an alert message box, please describe briefly what I said. It doesn't matter if you don't know exactly. Just tell us what you remember. I don't think I remembered. I don't think there's an alert. The only thing I remember seeing was that it had to be £40 minimum, and certain days of the week we were only allowed. I think that was it.
So as you saw there, the customer in testing just completely didn't engage with the alert that we've deemed is quite important. We've given it a warning status. So we've decided that this is something that's quite important that they need to read. And those things kind of help us create our purpose and problem statements. The purpose we've got for the alert is: an alert displays a short, important message that attracts the user's attention without interrupting the user's task. The problem statement is along the lines of we're encouraging you. We're wanting to encourage users to read a variety of alerts across the site by improving the UI. And sometimes we really want the users to read something. So, for example, in that screen, you can see that we've got 2 alerts. And this has especially happened a lot during the pandemic because we're trying to communicate a lot of policies, slot availability changes. I'm sure most people who are trying to use online groceries are having issues getting slots or have had issues getting slots. So there's often a lot of things on that page that needs to be communicated to help the customer with their journey. And at this point, we had 2 things we wanted the user to read, and we've seen 2 issues. They are: the messages aren't being read, which you saw in the video, and one of the message isn't really a warning. Unfortunately, we can't show you what the top message is because the information within that hasn't gone live yet. So yeah, sorry about that. So looking at the UI, on the left you've got the old UI, and on the right you've got the new UI and a stage in between. And as well as making them more noticeable to get the engagement that we're looking for, we're also going to tackle a couple of little issues that we've got in there, whereby we already mentioned that we didn't want something to be a warning, so we need to introduce a new style. So we're introducing an informative status. So in the middle, what we've got is we've introduced a little highlight line just to try and draw the user's eye and engage. We've also updated the icon in the warning status, the idea being here, you're kind of used to a warning exclamation mark on road signs within a triangle, and there's already that association, so just using that to help inform our decisions. And then on the right, new UI, it's functional. You know, it's not necessarily anything new, but it's new to our experience. And we've added in that little color on the background because most of our UI is gray based. So adding in that extra color just is really going to help catch the user's attention and get them to read any content that we drop in there. So here you can see them kind of side by side on that specific experience. What we're doing here is we're kind of just double checking back against our purpose and our problem statement and making sure that we're attracting the user's attention. And we're assuming we're doing that. How might we encourage the user to read the alerts across by improving the UI? And you know, we're making that assumption at this point that that's what we've done.
So to test the UI that Seb had been working on, we showed the old UI and the new UI above the stock grid, as you saw on the previous slide, to 2 different sets of users. And we asked them the types of messages that they remembered seeing. And what we saw was that those users who were seeing the new designs reported seeing both an information notice and a warning message more often than those users who were seeing the old designs. Now, we also asked users whether they remembered what those messages actually said, and Seb's going to cover those results a little bit later on.
And so we think we've got the purpose sorted here, but can we look at function as well? And the question is, can we prepare the user for the message? So as well as making the alerts easier to see, we can also do some of the communicating within the UI, and this is through color theory and the icon use. And in this way, the user will have to spend less time and effort processing the message itself, and they are more likely to take the information on board.
And to test our assumptions that the icons and the colors that we've been using in these new designs were appropriate for the messages that we were going to show in the alerts, we showed each of the new alert types without a message inside to users and asked them the types of messages that they would expect to see inside. And for this, we use the 4 standard classifications for alert messages. So that's error, warning, success, and information. And we showed that largely our assumptions were correct. So 97% of users associated the success status as success, 93% of users associated the informative status as information. And what you can see here is there's some overlap between what users perceived as an error and a warning, but it's not totally unsurprising, or seeing as we're using sort of quite broad terms with overlapping meanings. And so we're confident that the overall understanding of the sentiment of these messages is accurate.
So problem solved, right? We need the user to see something. We've made it more likely that they will see it, and it will be in line with their expectation. So we're done. Well, not exactly. This is kind of going back to the testing that Chloe mentioned before. Despite all of the testing, we found that fewer users were reading what the information notice showed. So the issue that we've got is the new alert state created a hierarchy between the 2 alerts we're showing on that experience. And in a limited time, the user was choosing to read the warning message over the information message. So even if we're optimizing the UI to make the alert more noticeable and meet the expectation, which goes back to the purpose and the problem, users still might not actually read it, especially when there's more than one thing we want to communicate. And again, we'll come back to this a little bit later.
So to go a step further, we showed users each of the alert statuses without a message inside, and we asked them on a scale how positive or negative they would expect a message in that alert type to be. And what we found is that even before reading what the message actually says, the user's preparing themselves for either good or bad news based on the alert type that's shown. And at a time when, as a business, a lot of the messages that we're communicating to our customers can be quite sensitive, so things like really limited slot availability, it's so important for us as a business to recognize that the way that we choose to show these messages can have a really significant impact on the way that users feel about our brand. And so we wanted to go even further and understand more deeply how each of these alert statuses were really making our customers feel. So once again, we showed each of the alert status types to users without a message inside, and we asked them to choose 5 words from a list that best described how they felt when they would see this type of alert. And unsurprisingly, we found that positive messages make users feel good. So you can see here on the top right-hand side, the top 5 words associated with the success status were consistently positive. But contrary to what we were expecting, we found that more neutral messages were seen significantly more negatively even than warning messages. And the biggest surprise of the test was that the more serious the alert, the more positively it was seen by our users. So it's not just about how positive or negative the message is, it's about how important the user feels it is to what they're trying to do. They're weighing up the balance between the effort it's going to take them to read this message versus the importance they think it's going to have on their overall experience.
So alerts with purpose can make things easier is a bit of a hypothesis that we put together to maybe challenge the results that we got from the previous testing. We wanted to see if the way users felt about an alert changed, if it helped them complete an action rather than just conveying information to them. We then asked the user to complete the same word association task after the test that we're just about to show.
On the delivery page, choosing the shipping method, we want to look for a delivery. Okay, delivery address. We're going to keep with that in Stoke. Okay, a lot of us have found this recently with COVID. Lots and lots of bookings. I'm running out of food, so can I wait till March? you have priority access. You can see all delivery slots currently available. Okay, so this is just everything that is available. Right, so there's nothing there. Let's go to click and collect, which is second. Okay. So, okay, let's have a look. And let's try and book one for as soon as possible. Early riser. Let's go with click and collect on Thursday. Please choose the 5 words from the list below that describes how you feel about this alert. 5 words. Okay, let's have a look. Clear. It was right there. I needed it. It was my second option, so that's perfect. And not desirable because, ideally I wanted a delivery slot. Definitely doesn't get in the way. I think it's essential. It's nice to have that. I know the page before we had book delivery or click and collect, but I don't want to have to press back. I want to see, okay, there's nothing available, then you can do this. So helpful as well, essential and helpful. Let's have a look. Compelling, not particularly, not irrelevant. Relevant, yes. How many have I chosen? 4. Okay. Useful, I feel like I've said that with helpful. Is there anything else? Satisfying, I think is quite nice. It shows that the website understands what you want to do next, which is, it shows intelligence. I like.
And so in line with that example that you just saw there, we found that the top 5 words associated with the informative status as part of that task, which is shown on the right there, were consistently positive. And that's a significant change for the top 5 words that were associated with the informative status on the previous test, with the identical UI when it wasn't helping the users do something.
And so at this point, what we found is that we're really happy with where we are with our current alert. We think it does everything it needs to, and our customers are going to be able to understand it. But if we go back to the kind of component cycle, what it's now led us on is kind of, we've gone through that circle, we come back, and actually it informs the next piece of work that we started looking on actually last week. And so all communications don't necessarily need to be shown as an alert on that piece of our experience. So what started out as a project to make users read alerts made us think about how we talk to our customers across Waitrose.com. How can we communicate information that doesn't require the user to read something that they already perceive as being annoying or getting in their way before they've even read it? So what we started to do was just look at our buttons within the slot grid and how could we communicate what was in the alert above that you saw on that video within our grid to display what is a priority access slot. So again, we go back and we look at purpose and the problem statement. Purpose, the slot grid buttons should show a range of availabilities to help inform the user in their choices they are making. The problem statement, customers aren't sure if they're seeing priority slots or not. So on the left-hand side, you can kind of see that when we've got available and fully booked slots, actually visually, they're not that dissimilar. As you kind of move across, we're then showing, taking away the fully booked so that visually there's much more difference between those two states. And then delivering that extra bit of information, we can change the content of the button, obviously, and we're introducing priority access buttons, but also further down the line, there are other things that we might want to communicate is a difference of this slot. So for example, eco slots available, and really again, this is the point at which we've got assumptions that we're trying to help the customer make decisions at this critical point in their journey where they're about to book a slot. And we tend to find that's either at the beginning or at the end of their journey, but we don't want this to be a blocker. Also you can see on there as well, we've added like a bit of an X on the selected slot, and the reason for that is we regularly get verbatim saying that once a customer chooses a slot, if they've chosen the wrong one, they need to be able to get rid of it. And so again, that's just giving the customer an easy click to do that. And this kind of brings us to the conclusion. And that is that UI design is more than just making components look a certain way, and user research for UI is more than just A/B testing which design makes people buy more. Subtle differences can have a big impact on what the user does and how they feel, not just about the interaction, but about the experience with your brand as a whole, which is so important at the moment. So as much as possible, try to test and challenge your assumptions, just dig that little bit deeper. Because in the example we've just shown, we wouldn't have understood that the information message wasn't being read as much, and how to change the feeling associated with it. So by understanding why users are interacting in a certain way or not interacting at all, as we found, we can learn much more than what we started off trying to find out. And the results of what started off as a tiny test can lead to improvements across the entire web experience, but then also inform the next piece of work that we kind of moved on to. So what began out as looking at purpose and function of the alerts, we then now have an understanding of sentiment, meaning, feeling, and perception, all within that small component. Thank you.